Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have a special guest in the building, and I've been practicing your name for the last 5 minutes, and I've totally forgot, but let me try it. Gina Brillon.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Was that it, though?
Good. Gina Brillon.
Yeah, I knew it.
You
How
said
are
it with
you,
the proper
Gina?
accent.
Gina
I'm
Brillon.
good.
Gina Brillon.
Yes, I am
That's
good.
not it, though.
No,
Welcome.
You got a special called Easily Offended.
Yes, I do. Yes, coming out on HBO August 16th.
What did that title mean? Because I like when people offend people.
For me, it was about how sensitive. There's like a sensitivity epidemic going
Yes,
around
it
now,
is.
where like if you say one thing, even if you said it 20 some odd years ago, it doesn't matter. Stuff's coming back to haunt you, and everybody is so sensitive nowadays that as a performer, it's annoying.
Has it affected you?
Yes, of course it has. And I'm like the most people-friendly performer, I think. Like, you know, I have a lot of families that come out to my shows, and it's still, people still find things. They comb through your set, and they find something to be offended about. And I tell a story in that special about a woman approaching me after a show in Canada about something that offended her.
What did you say?
I said sorry because I was
What
raised
did you
right.
do to offend her? I said sorry. What was that?
No, what was the
Mush her
original?
face and be like, yo, go
He's saying
home
what
with
was the
your stupid
original
self.
joke that offended
Yeah,
her?
what did you say?
She was offended by a phrase that I used in a joke where I said, I talk about, I make a reference to Pinocchio, and I say I'm a real girl. And she said that was transphobic. So she came up to me with her wife who was trans, and I apologized immediately. I said, that wasn't my intention. I had the line wasn't meant like that, and I'm sorry if it offended you.
He was a wooden boy.
Her wife
You
was
said
Yes,
real, you meant-
exactly. I meant real as in Pinocchio was wooden. I don't know if
flesh.
y'all seen
Be
the
honest,
story.
be honest. You got a little shook. Her wife was Diesel.
No, that's the thing. You know what's funny is the wife. None of them was Diesel, but like the one girl, it was a lesbian couple. One of them was trans. The girl who was trans looked like she wanted to cry and she wanted nothing to do with the situation. She looked like her wife
embarrassed.
wanted to start something,
Right.
and she was like, "Yo, chill, let's just go." But her wife was upset, and I even told her, I said, "I get it. If it was my husband and somebody had offended him, I'd jump in
Stand up
and you
for
know."
him.
I would
Right.
stand up for him. But the lady was relentless. She said, your apology's not sincere. Like, she kept going in, and I was like, all right.
So what you supposed to do?
I was like, all right, have a good night. I was like, have a good night. Bye. Like,
You
there's
want your
nothing I
money?
can
Did
do.
you offer their money back?
Hell no. You paid your money. That was your fault.
What if a guy came up to you and was like, I'm offended you said a joke about small penises?
I'd be like, that sounds like a you problem, son. Like, take that to your therapist.
That's very true though. We base who we apologize to based off the power of said group.
Yeah.
That's just the truth to the matter.
Because
Yeah.
you're like, in your head, you're calculating, especially as a performer. You're
happen?
like, yo, what could happen if this person gets really mad? If
And this goes viral.
Yeah, because there could be small penis
Yeah.
men outside
Nah,
demonstrating.
small dick men can't
Yeah.
stop your money. No. There ain't gonna be no small dick protests.
Nope.
They ain't gonna do that. No small dick men
They're
calling
not
for
going to own up
boycotts.
to it. They're not going to be like, we at the Small Dick Society.
Exactly.
Right.
We have a lot to say about what
The
you just
SDS.
said.
Exactly.
SDS, y'all.
You know,
SDS.
I was saying it earlier. I was watching Hangover on a movie a
Yeah.
couple days ago. And some of the jokes that they had in that movie, there's no way they
I
could
thought
do
you were
now.
talking about the small penis in Hangover. Remember that?
I was traumatized.
Yeah.
I tried to block it out of my memory.
The small
Thank you
penis
for
in
bringing it
Hangover?
back.
You don't remember
oh my
that
God,
part?
yes.
I don't
yes.
remember.
Where he jumped out the trunk.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the little Asian man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
That was a very traumatizing part for a lot of people that saw that movie.
Yeah.
But do you change yourself because of that? Like, you know, jokes that you could have made 10 years ago that you know you can't make, people get offended, or you just like F it?
You know what I think as a performer, it's not fair to box yourself in, like, and it's not fair for people to box performers in and be like, you can't say certain things. Like, especially with comedians, our job is to observe the world and then speak on it. You're not letting us speak on it. You're saying we have to use this controlled language to speak on it, which is taking away some of our rights as creatives. I may not agree with everything that's said. I may not agree with everything that people put out there, but I will tell you, do they have the right to put it out there? Yeah. Freedom of speech is a real pain in the ass if you don't like what somebody's saying. Right. That's the problem.
I think freedom of speech is fine as long as whoever is doing the speech is willing to deal with the consequences.
Yes.
That's it.
Absolutely.
And there might be some.
And the consequences are very heavy nowadays.
Like, you know, who don't care? Dave Chappelle. We say it all the time.
Yeah.
He don't care.
Yeah, but
He
Dave
says,
Chappelle got $1 million billion.
Right.
He can afford not to care.
Absolutely got to
Yeah.
fuck you money.
Yeah, he has that money. Like, I can get a lawyer that's going to get me out of this anyway. But the fact is, I feel like what I respect about him is that he's always been that I don't care dude.
Yes.
Right, even when
before the money.
right.
And so that's why everybody respects his attitude.
You know who's not a comedian but can also say whatever he wants? 50 Cent.
Yeah, that's true.
50 Cent say whatever.
We
He
all
be
can say
dragging
whatever we
people.
want.
He be
I mean,
dragging
yeah,
people
but
though.
he just don't he don't care at all.
And that's the
A lot
point,
of us
though.
censor
Yeah.
ourselves.
As long as you don't care. You know what I'm saying? I think Like my problem is going to therapy. I think therapy made me have too much empathy for people.
Nothing
I
wrong
will
with
say
empathy.
that I started going to therapy not too long ago, and my empathy jumped up a
Yeah,
lot. Like it really did.
That's not a bad thing, though.
I mean, it's not a bad thing, but the only bad thing is you self-edit now. And what happens when you self-edit is that you can't be real. Because you're sitting there going, I can't say that, man. I can't say this.
How's she gonna feel? How's she gonna feel if I say this?
I've always cared about people's feelings. I feel like.
But you've also always been tactful. So I'm like, I don't always have the gift of tact when I'm trying to say something to somebody. And so if you're not
Yes, how you
naturally a
say it.
tactful person, then you gotta learn that lesson the hard way.
Now let's backtrack with Gina for a minute because you've been in this comedy business for how long now?
I started when I was 17. I've been in the business now for about 22 years.
And I met you a little earlier on.
You did. You
when
met
I
me
was
about
at-
3 or 4 years in, I think.
When I was at Sirius, and I was just telling you before you walked in here, I want to congratulate you because we both been grinding really hard. We both were pretty new at what we were doing when I was at Sirius, and you were doing comedy, and you came on Lip Service.
I did. I was your resident sex therapist.
Yes, and you met some porn stars. You said that was the first time.
did. It was the first time I met porn stars. It was very exciting.
How are you the sex therapist?
when I was starting comedy, I also wanted to be a sex therapist. So I was taking like human sexuality classes, behavioral classes, psychology classes, and I was always just very curious about, first of all, how sex changed people, how it affected people, how it affected relationships. And it became like something else I just wanted to learn about and know about. And I ended up going on Lip Service, and I would give advice to people that would write in, whether it was relationship advice or straight up sex advice.
I have a question, right?
Oh,
Yes.
I have a coworker, right? That's really flirtatious
Oh, man.
to the point
Okay.
where I feel uncomfortable.
It's not me, by the way.
Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
Why are you looking at me like that? So it's to the
Looking
point.
at Drum, looking at you.
Charlamagne, do you know who this
Drum's
person
like,
is?
Drum's like, please don't blow me up.
What would you say to get that flirtatious coworker away from you and get him to stop? Because it's getting to the point right now. It's very awkward.
Yeah.
I'm a married man.
I'm married too.
What does it have to do with you?
Yeah, what? Is it?
He's talking about me, but the problem is he sags his pants all the time.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Well, then stop dressing
Exactly.
like that.
Stop.
What? Did you
What are
just
wearing?
blame the victim?
Exactly.
Yeah, Gina.
Exactly.
We're gonna go back to your childhood and discuss why you act the way you act.
Yes.
To bring this behavior out of Charlamagne.
Exactly.
That turned on me. Good.
When it comes to stuff like that, though, I always tell people to speak up. I just had somebody tell me something like that about like a situation where she had to speak up, and I was like, I don't know why you're talking to me about this. I'm not the person you need to talk to. People spend a lot of time asking about other people instead of talking to the other person and being like, yo, what is up with this situation? The amount of arguments and fights we would avoid if you would just communicate and be like, yo, I have a problem, instead of being passive aggressive, instead of bottling it up and then exploding later on. Like, because people don't talk, that's the biggest issue.
There we go. That's some great advice.
You're welcome, guys.
We gotta,
Mic drop
we
this
gotta
morning.
bring a resident sex therapist back.
Yeah, did you have that before therapy? That type of insight?
I was always the kid, like, I guess because I grew up in the South Bronx, like all of our family, I hung out with grown-ups because, when you're growing up in a neighborhood like that, like a hood like that, kids watch kids, people's neighbors watch kids, so we were all like a family. So I was always around grown-ups. I would always hear their conversations. I knew how to act around grown-ups, so I was sort of wise beyond my years as a kid. And then what solidified that was me being interested in therapy in the first place. And then as an adult, when I started taking therapy, it just gave me more insight into my own issues and the things that I wanted to fix. And so when I see that in another person, my instinct is to try to help them already.
I always say the craziest people in America come from the Bronx and all of Florida.
I would agree
Yeah.
completely.
She's like, because I'm from the Bronx.
Yeah.
At one point, you were doing a sitcom about your life, too.
I was, yeah. We had a deal over at CBS.
With Kevin James.
Yes, and that
Ain't
was
no way
crazy
growing up in
experience.
the Bronx can be on CBS.
I'm not gonna disagree with that thought. It felt like the story, and this always happens with networks. And don't get me wrong, like everybody at CBS was wonderful, but it's like when you're telling a story and it has to go through so many levels of people, things automatically change because people's opinions come in and
Just
they go,
watered
you
down.
can't do that, you can't do this. This is what we can do. How do we fix this? And where to compromise is, I feel like, where every creative kind of struggles. It's like,
Yeah.
where do I compromise what I see versus what y'all are telling me is going to work?
But you got a white executive from LA somewhere trying to tell you who's from the Bronx what the Bronx looks like and what the Bronx
and
sound
what
like.
Latino people want and what like these like, and I'm like, you're not listening to the people. Like, if you would just listen to the people, the answers are so simple.
Yes.
What was the original concept?
Originally, it was a concept actually of the story of my worst breakup I ever had and how I had to start my life over completely after that breakup.
What was so bad?
I'm gonna be real. It was
As opposed to fake?
Yeah, because a lot of people would probably try to be more diplomatic about things. But I mean, I've talked about it on podcasts before. I was in a very emotionally abusive relationship for 7 years. And then I got out of it, but I lost everything. I lost where I lived. I lost the life I knew for 7 years. I lost the family I had built for 7 years.
What was he doing? What was he saying? What was he doing to you?
It was constant, like, he would look at other performers and be like, oh, that person's going to be better than you in a year.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that girl. Oh, you don't. And if, like, we had a scale, and if I needed to, like, lose weight, or if I was doing TV, I had to, like, weigh myself. And, like, he would like, take food away from me, like, in restaurants. And people, the thing is, like, it was subtle back then to me, and it's obvious now, but he would do things like, oh, she can't have bread. Oh, she can't have this. Like, before I would even say anything. And my girlfriends would be outraged, and I'd just be like, oh, no, he's just looking out. He's just trying to help.
He wants me to be
Because that line is hard to read between supportive and controlling.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, are you being supportive or are you being controlling? And there were other things that just showed the way he would talk to me, the way he would treat me. Like, he knew how to manipulate a situation and did it every time.
How did you finally get out?
But the funny thing is, my career is what saved me, because I started working more. I got a manager, everything, started picking up for me. I started traveling more, started getting more money. And it was like, the more I worked and the more I got away from the situation, it was like distancing myself from my kryptonite.
Gotcha.
And I started to see things differently. And I started to look at it like, yo, wait a minute. I'm not this person that gets walked on. Mm-hmm. I'm not this person that gets talked to. Like, am I that person? And then I went back to the situation, started picking up on more behaviors that were telling me like something was up, like he was trying to inch away. So I just cut the cord.
Wow.
I was just like, this isn't, we had a long conversation, and I said, this obviously is not going where I thought it was going, and I was hurt about it. Like, this is how messed up, and I hate to say this because I hope he's a better dude now. I really do. He's married, he's got kids now. Like, I hope he's a better dude now. But while I was crying my eyes out, ending this very unhealthy relationship, he was literally smiling in my face and telling me not to cry. He was like, don't cry, like almost like a sociopath. Like, wow. Don't cry. This is okay. And I'm like, this is 7 years of my life.
Right.
That's okay for you? And so it was just, my eyes were so much more open after pulling myself out of it, which is why I always push people, just urge them to just separate yourself from that situation. Mm-hmm. If it's an unhealthy situation, as hard as it is, and it was hard, you still have to love yourself more than your addiction to the situation.
I'm glad you went through that.
Yeah.
Because it makes comedians funny. I do not know why the most tragic situations make comedians hilarious.
It's the same reason why, like, if you put somebody in an adverse situation, it's like sink or swim. Mm-hmm. It's like you're either going to rise and step up to the plate, or you're going to end up, feeling like a victim your whole life. Mm-hmm. But if you can rise up and pull yourself out of it, the amount of people that you can pull up with you, that's the reward. Is if I get out of this situation, the amount of people that come up to me and go, because of your story, I left this person.
Have you seen him again since then or no?
Yeah, I see him every now and then. We don't really
He doesn't
talk.
come to your shows or nothing?
No, but he does work at one of the comedy clubs in New York on occasion, and sometimes I'll see him. I keep my distance.
He a comedian?
No, he's an engineer, sound guy, and I'll see him every now and then, but I just keep my distance. Like, I don't wish him any ill will. I hope he has the best life. I hope he's the best father to his kids. I hope his wife is happy. I wish him all the best. I wish him so much growth and everything, and I really do genuinely wish him all that.
It felt like you needed that closure, like just one last conversation, or nah? It's just...
No, because... And closure to me sometimes feels like such a selfish thing. Like, I need closure. The situation's over. Right. There's your closure. Gotcha. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's done. Now I got to take care of me. My closure comes with me learning how to take care of myself and sort of healing myself. Because I can't control the actions of somebody else. Nope. I'm seeking closure. They might not want anything.
Exactly.
So then I'm tortured by this thought of this isn't over for me.
If you put your healing in the hands of somebody else, you'll never heal.
That's very true.
How did you know your husband was the one?
Oh, man. I almost knew immediately. Like, when I met him, like, we started talking. I had a huge crush on him. I met my husband. We were both working on a cruise ship. He's a musician. And I was doing shows on there. He was doing shows, and we shared a venue. And the first day I saw him, immediately I was like, oh, my goodness, the most handsome person I've ever seen. Like, I immediately liked him. And then everything about him just was so charming. He's the guy that buys everybody in the room a drink. He talks to everybody. He was everything I wasn't, because I'm not a very social person outside of comedy. I'm very to myself. I keep to myself. And he was very outgoing.
What's his sign?
He's a Sag.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm an Aries. So I stayed in my little snobby corner. Like, peasants. And so he would always pull me out, like, because he was that guy that was like, hey, let's all have a conversation. Hey, let's all talk about music. He was always so outgoing and wonderful. And it was something I really still admire about him. And then when we started talking, he loved comedy. I loved music. And
we were on a cruise ship. It was romantic.
It was time. It was time to partay. And and that was it. As soon as we met.
Clearly, he's not a member of the SDS.
No, he is not.
Okay.
A shout out to him.
Now, you're a Latina woman with an HBO special. How does that feel?
It feels incredible.
Man.
I did a project with HBO Latino once before, and at the end of my set, I had gotten a standing ovation, and I just started bawling. Like, I couldn't even control it. All I could think of was, my family, knowing how much they supported me throughout my career, finally seeing that it's paying off is the biggest benefit. And I think, not just for me, but also to be able to talk to other Latin performers and be like, yo, you could do this. Right. You can work in mainstream. You can work anywhere. You can push yourself. You can make this money. You can get this career. It's possible for me. It's possible for you too. I'm not threatened by other performers. I'm proud of them. Nobody should be threatened by another performer. We should all feed each other's success, man.
Word.
That is such a big issue with this industry is ego. Absolutely. Get over your ego. Get over yourself, because if we uplift each other, that's the only way to win.
Things inspire, though. Things inspire. A lot of things inspire. It's not necessarily, like you said, competition. It's just, I like to see people do well because it inspires me to work harder.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you should look at another person and say, man, if they can do it, not even necessarily what you're doing exactly, but if they can do something, I can do something too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I like that feeling. You know what I mean? It's like you see it in so many interviews. Like Bernie Mac had said it in his interviews. I'm in competition with myself. I look at what I've accomplished and what I want to accomplish, and I'm pushing myself and I'm testing myself. What's the next thing that I'm going to do? And the more I do that, the more I grow as a person too, not just as a performer. You grow personally from this, from that kind of attitude.
Now, we got to ask you, as far as being a woman in this business, we've heard some horror stories. We just had Ida up here the other day.
Ida Rodriguez.
Yes, Ida Rodriguez. And she was talking about
her so much.
Being a woman in this business and how hard it's been for her in certain situations, dealing with other male comics and the way that they treat you. How was that for you coming up?
It was a struggle. I'm not going to lie. I was always the youngest. I was usually the only female. Sometimes I'm still the only female on a lineup. And I think what helped me on the beginning of my career was I didn't concentrate on that. And I think that came from, growing up in the Bronx, I was friends with a lot of like my school bullies. Like I made them laugh, so they were friends with me. And I saw sort of the hierarchy of how they did things. They weren't concerned with certain things. And so when I started in comedy, all I could think of was just laser focus. What do I want to do? Don't pay attention to what they're telling you can't do. Don't pay attention to the corners they're pushing you in. What do I want to do? And if I stayed laser focused on those goals and those goals only, then I wasn't thinking about how I was being talked to or how I was being treated. I'm not saying that that's the perfect way to deal with it. I'm saying
that's how you did it.
That's how I did it. I laser focused and I was like, you know what, this person's disrespectful. I don't feel safe in this situation. And there were situations. Oh, totally. There were so many awful situations. There was a dude that offered to drive me home one night, and he drove me home to the Bronx. And I was like maybe 19, 20 years old. And he goes, well, let's go grab a drink and let's talk about comedy. Now, I was a comedy nerd, and this dude had been in the game more years than me. So I said, yeah, sure, let's go. I didn't drink. I grew up in a Latin household. I had already had rum by the time I was 5. So I knew what it tastes like. I wasn't going to miss it. So right. I was like, I never had the desire to drink at that age. And so we're sitting there and talking, and he puts his hand on my leg. And I pushed his hand off, and I was like, hey, I really should go home now. So we're driving home. He pulls over the car and just takes and shoves his hand right down my shirt. Doesn't say anything, shoves his hand down my shirt. I freeze. I don't know what to do because the person that's me that's from the Bronx wants to haul off and punch him right in his face. Like I want to punch this dude in his face. I'm also sizing him up and I'm like, I am way smaller than this dude.
Am I in danger?
So am I in any kind of trouble? If I hit this dude and he hits me back, am I going to be knocked out? Like, I'm sizing all this up while I'm frozen in fear because I don't know what to do. But me being frozen in fear must have scared him. He pulled his hand out, he freaked out, drove me home, and just dropped me off. And the next day, he saw me at a comedy club and he was like, hey, I just want to make sure we're cool after what happened. And when I tell you, I don't think I could have stopped the Bronx girl from coming out because I was like, we are not cool. I was like, if you ever put your hands on me again, I'm gonna slap the shit out you.
That's right.
And then I was like, don't talk to me, don't look at me. We do not know each other. And that was the last time I had an interaction with that dude. And that was also the last time I let somebody I didn't know drive me home.
Right.
From that point on, I didn't even, and there were guys I didn't even take rides from because I was like, I don't trust you.
You didn't have a knife or razor on you?
I had mace for a little while. But
what kind of Latina woman are you?
But I started training in MMA, boxing, and stuff like that. So like, when I say I'm gonna put my hands on you, I'm gonna put all these hands on you.
When's the last time you used your hands like that?
When I got mugged. And somebody like.
I haven't even heard that word.
I know. I was like,
That's a New York word.
I said mug.
Yeah, it's New York word.
That's such a New York word. I got mugged.
You got mugged.
I got robbed. I was accosted. I use all the terminology so everybody across the board gets it. This was a while back. I don't really ever have to like use my hands because
you shouldn't have to.
Well, also when you're trained, that's the first thing they tell you. They're like, you're liable.
Word.
You're trained now. So if somebody finds out you're trained and you beat up somebody, you're the one that's gonna get arrested.
When
and
he
get in trouble.
mugged you though, or robbed you. So what happened?
Well,
now?
that's
So I was actually babysitting at the time. It was one of the many day jobs I had, and I was with this little girl I was babysitting. She was 9 years old, and we're walking out of the subway. This guy reaches into my purse and he pulls out my makeup case. And at first I thought like, yo, I thought it was a friend of mine because he looked like a friend. Like I turned around and I was like, I thought it was my buddy. So I kind of like smiled and I was like, wait, no, that's not my friend. And I was like, give me my bag back. So I grabbed my bag back and he grabbed my purse. And then we went to go run with my purse, but we were in the subway, so there wasn't a lot of people. So I told the little girl, I was like, yo, get behind me. I was like, stand against the wall. I said, don't move. Don't move from there. No matter what happens, do not move. And I grabbed my bag back, but he had my wallet. So I was like, and it was stupid of me. Don't ever do this in any mugging situation. Do not fight with a dude. Just let him take it. It's not worth it. I had like $10 in a Metro card, and I was about to fight this dude. So I said, yo, give me my stuff back. Give me my stuff back. And he wouldn't give me my stuff back. So we were literally walking up the stairs, me and this dude like fighting over my stuff. Little girl still there, right? We get to the top of the staircase. He grabs me by the shoulders. I grab him by the shoulders. He punches me in my face. Punches me right in my face. I'm like, whoa. I take the punch pretty well because he doesn't know I've been punched before. So he punched. I think it scared him because he punched me and he was like, why didn't she go down? Like, he was like, why is she still standing? And so I was still standing there. He punched me in the face. And so I grabbed him again and I was about to throw him, but he was so much bigger than me that he just picked me up right away and threw me against this concrete wall. So I hit the wall, I hit the floor, and I was out. And I came to like a couple seconds later, and little girl standing right there crying. My lip is busted. There's a whole crowd around me. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to calm her down. I'm trying to stay calm because I'm still disoriented. Some lady just out of nowhere hands me like this Starbucks like drink, and I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, I take the drink.
You
and I'm
drank
like,
a drink?
I just drank a drink. I'm like, I trust strangers now. And so I didn't know any of this was going on, but apparently there was this Russian doorman, shout out to whoever this dude was, who saw the guy run off. So when the cop car pulled up, this doorman jumps in the cop car and he's like, I know what the guy looks like. He went right up the block. He's like, let's go get him right now. She's got a whole group of people around her. And so they catch the guy. Another cop car pulls up to take me to go identify the guy. So I get in the cop car and I go.
You took the little girl with you, right?
I couldn't. Her mom worked up the block.
She was still against the wall?
She was. No, I left her. She's still against the wall to this day.
Don't move.
She's just there, just living there now. She's all grown. Everybody just like the Virgen de Guadalupe. They just put a bunch of like things by her feet. They're like, here you go. No, her mom was working up the block, so there was a nice elderly woman that had given me the Starbucks drink, and I was like, all right, like. She walked. The little girl had a cell phone too, so like she walked to her mom's job, and like her mom called me later. But I wasn't gonna bring her in the cop car.
Right.
No, she was like, oh my God, are you okay?
I know.
But she was understandably shook. But that would have been great if she fired me. Oh, by the way, you're fired.
You're fired.
Don't ever get mugged in front of my daughter again. So I get in the cop car and there's like a homeless guy that was also mugged by the same dude sitting next to me,
What?
and his
He
head is
mugged a
bleeding.
homeless person?
Yes, he like threw this homeless dude down the stairs, and I was like, this dude's a real piece of work. I'm like, you mugged a homeless dude? Like, he's like, I'm trying to get money too. Like, why? So he's here, and the homeless dude is shook because he's clearly not here legally.
Right.
And I'm like, he's scared. So I'm trying to talk to him in Spanish, like in the back of the car. I'm like, just relax. I'm like, you're gonna be fine. They're just gonna ask you a bunch of questions. You're not in trouble. And because he's like visibly shaken that he's in the back of a police car and he thinks he's in a lot of trouble. And I'm like, they just need me to identify the guy. I was like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to get out of the car. And so I get out of the car. I identify the guy because the guy's standing like a few feet at a different cop car, and I have to point him out. And it was this whole thing, and like I had to get in touch with the DA, and I had to go into like and identify him like in court and everything. It was so Law and Order.
Now, do you go get a refund on those MMA lessons?
Yeah, I thought the story was going to be
I had
different.
just started training, right? But I should go back to my coach and be like, I got punched in the
Yeah,
face.
when you said that story, I thought that you was about to whip this dude's
Me
ass.
too.
I was like, yes, girl, in front of the
No.
9-year-old, she saw you whoop his ass.
No. He was definitely not my weight class. This dude was
I know-
ginormous.
I heard you mention that he wasn't an immigrant. How do you feel about the immigrant and ICE situation happening in the country?
It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I can't watch it without crying. I can't see any of those clips without knowing people, like thinking of the people that I know that are struggling, that are scared. So when I see it, it's just a reminder of all the people that, you know, when you're in the situation and it's such a community of people, when you feel like you can't protect or help your community, it's heartbreaking. When you're like, there's nothing I can do, and if I could stand in front of the front lines and stop this from happening, I would. You know, so what can you do? Write in. What can you do? Talk to your Congress people. What can you do? Like, you can do as much as you can. And I think we're all working towards
And
we're all
spread
doing as much
awareness
as
too,
yes.
and make sure people know what's going on.
And make sure people understand what the situation is. The more people talk about it, the more. I love that there are so many comedians now that will tackle the subject and will talk about it and make people sort of like see it from a different perspective. Nobody's trying to change your mind. Everybody freaks out, and that's one of the things people get upset about. Nobody's trying to change your mind. They're not trying to change who you are intrinsically as a person. We're just trying to get you to understand it from the other perspective.
That's real.
Try to see it from somebody else's side. Try to see it from somebody who came here for a religious asylum, or somebody came here to save themselves from a country that's at war.
Right.
Then not everybody here is trying to steal your job as an executive in a building. They're sweeping up floors. Let's be real. They're taking a demotion from what they did in their country. You know how many doctors I meet that are Uber drivers?
Right.
Yeah, my guy Andrew Schultz, he has a joke where he says, if you was an immigrant and you was trying to steal a job, wouldn't you steal a good job?
Yeah,
He's like-
exactly, yeah.
he was like-
I love
like, he
Andrew,
was
by the
saying,
way. He's one of my favorite
If you
people.
was stealing jobs, wouldn't you steal a good job? Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Greg Giraldo had a joke about like people always saying that immigrants are stealing jobs. There's no immigrant weathermen. There's no, like, look at the jobs that they are taking.
Right.
The bare minimum is still so much for them.
Right.
And people still, the fact that people are blind to that, just, it's frustrating. It doesn't even anger me. It's frustrating because I wish people had more empathy for the other side on both sides.
And they're just like blocked out. When you try to explain, they already want to believe what they want to believe, so they're not even listening or paying. Even a little girl crying because her father, she has no idea where he is. That doesn't even move some people. So
that doesn't
what can
break
you
your
say?
heart. You look at that and you go, really? That little girl should be crying?
Wow.
That little girl shouldn't have her dad? Because of what reason? Because you feel threatened by somebody?
And when I see people say stuff like, too bad they did something illegal, you're like, damn, you don't even know, A, if they were seeking asylum, what
Yeah.
was really going on, if what they did was illegal, if her dad was even an illegal immigrant at all. And, you
And by
just
the
see
way,
it-
not all illegals are Latino. I met a
At
girl
all.
from Germany years ago who was running away from an abusive relationship, came to the States.
There's Germans out there right now like, don't blow our spot.
Germany, keep your voice down. Keep our name out your mouth, Gina. We not here. Canadians, I'm coming for you too.
Gina,
love
the last
fucking
thing I
English,
wanted to
brother.
ask you was, do you think there's solidarity with women in comedy? Like, how is that?
I think with certain women there are. I think with certain women empowered, they do whatever they can. You see people like Tiffany Haddish. You see people like Whitney Cummings. Like you see people like doing stuff for, and you know, I've seen these women that actually genuinely help out other female performers, and it's a beautiful thing. Just like I've seen women that are threatened by it and feel insecure. And the thing is, I can understand both sides of it. You know, you're insecure because you feel like you're gonna age out of this business at a certain age, and the business feeds you that. So why wouldn't you be insecure? The problem isn't that this person is necessarily a hater. The problem is this person's insecurity and fear about their own career.
Word.
And that's what they're not dealing with. Is you're not dealing with your own insecurities. Because if you really believed in yourself, it wouldn't matter. Look at the people who made it later on in life. Look at the Chelsea handlers who were famous not in their early 20s.
Bernie Mac.
Yeah. Look at these people that came out and were famous later on in life.
Even Tiffany.
Yeah.
Tiffany be 40
Who had
this
this long career. And then boom, something hits and they blow up.
Right.
There's nothing, we create all these fake fears that don't really exist. Nobody's a threat to you unless you let them be a threat to you.
That's real.
If you soften your game because of your own insecurities, don't blame anybody else but you.
Well, we appreciate
I'm about to
you for
subscribe
joining
to your
us, too.
podcast, Mess in Progress.
Yes, Mess in Progress. Yes.
And check out, don't forget, Easily Offended. Tomorrow it comes out. Definitely
I'm
check
watching
out.
that too.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
please
excited.
do.
Gina, always a pleasure to see you. I'm so happy.
I'm
and
happy to
excited
be
for you.
here.
We got to have you through more often.
Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
happy to meet you, Gina.
Yeah, it's very nice
Say
to
her
meet all
last
y'all.
name.
Billion.
Gina Brillon.
Brillon.
Gina Billion is better though.
Brilliant.
Gina Billion.
Billion, yo.
Yes,
There
right.
you go. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.